about Santiago Calatrava. He's the author also of Mariscal, Wild Soy Yo, and Mundo Mendoza. And then we will ask Anatxu Zabalbeascoa to stay with us. She's architect, design critic at El País, and art historian. She has published more than 15 books, from the new Spanish architecture to Todo sobre la Casa. She has curated exhibitions at the Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid and at MACBA in Barcelona. She's the chairwoman at the Lowe Craft Prize jury. Rafael Gomez Moriana, adjunct associate professor, local manager of the Barcelona Term Abroad program at the University of Calgary Faculty of Environmental Design. He holds a professional architecture degree from the University of Waterloo and a post-professional master from the Berlage Institute, the Netherlands. Member of CICA, Comité International des Critiques d'Architecture. He contributes regularly to periodicals such as Frame, Azur, Baumeister, and previously Mark Magazine. And to finish with Eva Porębska, our curator, architect, architectural critic, editor-in-chief of Architektura Murator, professional monthly magazine since 1994, executive director of 3 leading Polish interior design titles and internet interior design platform, Time SA. Publishing house. She has also participated as jury in many events and has been recognized for her valuable contribution to architecture. So maybe this could be the sequence. You can tell us your experience.
Okay, I'm starting. Well, hi everyone. Thank you to the Foundation for this opportunity. I'm going to say a few words, first of all, about my experience in general terms, and afterwards about my experience with Barozzi, Veiga, who are a couple of architects I wrote about some years ago, and who are going to be of some use to explain how I try to work. About my professional experience. I work for a newspaper, so for the general interest press, not for a specialized press. My article's aim is to inform. I mean, there are some elements of criticism in my text, but more than anything else, what I try to do is to give a lot of information. Because in my view, there is a lack of information about architecture and its meaning in the public sphere. Why so? Well, architecture is one of the classical arts, as we all know, and it is always surrounding us. But it is not so well known as it should be, given its omnipresence. We all can go on skipping plays and movies and even not reading a single book. But all of us need a house or a flat to live in, and we all spend most of our lives surrounded by buildings. Nevertheless, most of the people have no skills for appreciating architecture. They simply do not know how good or bad the architecture they live in is. They don't know if they have to give a like it or a don't like it, despite it is changing their lives for the better or for the worse. Most of the time, they talk on the basis of impressions or feelings, not from knowledge. I think journalists interested in architecture could be of some help here. In the end, it is not so difficult to see if the building we are looking at is good or bad. It is just a matter of answering a few questions. Questions like, does this building accomplish what it was meant to? Or how does it deal with space? Or is it really worth being in there? Or how nice is the building's composition? Or how the building deals with materials? How the materials have been put together? Or how it deals with the city, how it contributes to making a better city and a better environment? When I write, I try to answer such questions and also to give the readers a few tools for answering such questions by themselves. And I try to explain as well the architect's 3 or 4 main decisions taking during his work, the decisions that are crucial for the final outcome. And now I'm going to talk shortly about my experience with Barozzi Veiga. We journalists and architecture critics must obviously visit every building we want to write about. This is law number one. This is no problem when buildings are in our own city or close to it. But it is not always so easy when they are built at the other end of our country, and it is simply impossible to visit all the buildings around the world that deserve a visit. But I was lucky enough with Barozzi Veiga. I got in touch with them at an early stage in their career. They were living and working in Barcelona, but they were kind of a secret practice. They were not born in the city. They focused on international competitions. They had no work in Barcelona, and not even a close relationship with the local architectural community. Nevertheless, I had the opportunity to visit their first two buildings just after their official opening, the Infanta Elena Auditorium in Águilas, Murcia, and the headquarters for the Ribera del Duero wines in Rohe, Burgos. So I wrote about those buildings in March 2011, 7 years ago. The article's headline was, "Pay attention to Barozzi Veiga." You know, this is something we journalists like, to write about some subject before than our colleagues do so. We like scoops. This time was maybe not the first time, but in my memory, I recall it as the first paper, so that's the same. I said that this is not easy to visit new buildings signed by the architects we like when such buildings are abroad. But the very moment Barozzi Veiga won the Mies van der Rohe Award, thanks to his building at the Szczecin, for the Szczecin Philharmonia, I knew that I had to travel to Poland, the sooner the better. And so I did, 10 months later, taking advantage of a trip to Berlin. Then in Szczecin, I was able to confirm with joy that my previous headline, "Pay attention to Barozzi Veiga," was fine, because somehow foresaw a bright future for a couple of young architects there in their 30s, but soon to be awarded with the main European architectural prize. And that's all I know. Now I give the floor to Anatxu.
Okay, so likewise, thanks, Pavilion Mies van der Rohe, for inviting us and for organizing this. And we hope we can reach to hopefully more conclusions than we normally do, because Eva said that she organized the first meeting for European magazines on architecture and so on, or at least that you went to. But Llàtzer and myself have been in several already, and it's not often that we reach conclusions. Okay, my personal view. As I've been working at El País, writing about several things, but mostly about architecture and design. And I got to I have the feeling you cannot hear me. Can you hear me well? No, you can't? So? I am very bad with this. Yeah, that's it. So perhaps I should hold it, yeah? Better, okay. So I didn't say anything important up to now, so I won't repeat it. Yeah, perhaps. Well, I can hold it. It's the same thing. As long as you hear me, yeah, it's fine? All right. So my first conclusion so far, I've been doing this for perhaps 20-something years, 25 years perhaps, is that I don't believe architectural criticism exists in the daily media, which is where we both, Llàtzer and myself, work. I mean, we have several architects asking us all the time, we want criticism for the media, please have a section, or get back the section. But I got to the conclusion that what they really want is to be on the paper and to be talked about and to be, basically applauded. Because when we have chances to have criticism, they don't really like it. I mean, you get enemies, and you're paid the same low salary. But if you are able, sometimes, because it's not easy. I mean, Llàtzer is a sub-director, but I'm a regular, one of contributor. So when you do get a chance to go and visit the buildings, you can think, you can compare, you have your own experience, and you can perhaps think from a user's point of view. And when you write that, you normally get in trouble, mainly with the architects. Okay, so that's one thing. So when they ask for criticism, what they want to is exposure, or however you call it. So that's my first idea. This doesn't happen in all sections of our papers, because if you think of the sports sections, for example, I mean, you can say Messi played well, even Messi, Messi, God in football. You can say he played well last Sunday, or you can say he didn't play well. And normally, I mean, you can know a lot about football. You can think that it's a stupid game of 11 men, normally men, running after a ball, or you can think it's a strategic game. Whatever you think of football, you are able to have your own judgment. In architecture, it's not so easy. You have, apparently, and obviously you have to know something else, which is obvious. I mean, the more you know, the more you will be able to tell. But as a user, you do have a point of view. And I think it should be important and relevant to architects. And for many, many years, decades, since I've been working in the press, it wasn't. It really was not relevant, the public point of view. So that's one thing. The second thing I wanted to say is that in the same paper, for example, in my case at El País, we have several different people writing about architecture. And I think that's very healthy. So we have perspectives. I mean, to the point that sometimes we write about the same project from a different point of view. And I'm sorry because it doesn't have a Mies van der Rohe award, but I can remember one that is I'm living now in Madrid, and there was a proposal to make a museum of architecture, of all things, right next to Caixa Forum in Madrid, for those in Paseo del Prado, so in the very center of Madrid, in a very important area. The museum was to be built, I will just make it short, by Emilio Ambas. How could I describe it in just a word? Intriguing architect from Argentina, based in New York, with lots of connections. He had been working at the MoMA and so on and so forth. So as a journalist, I was intrigued by the project, because I thought, I mean, how come this guy comes here, gets permissions, gets very cheap ways of, whatever, and the building was unbelievable. I mean, it was a garden wall in, with the sun in Madrid. It was unthinkable. So the guy who went from my paper to cover this presentation, he ended up the article saying, "Thank you, master." Thank you, master. After you go here, you come to a presentation, and, he ended up like that. And I was intrigued, and my boss asked me, "What do you think?" And I said, I mean, the building looks like a disaster, but I think, behind the building, it seems to me that there will be a bigger disaster. Okay, go investigate. Okay, go investigate. No extra money going against the guy in your paper who has done it. So, I mean, it's really a very personal choice to be critical, not to be critical, and so on and so forth. In the end, it's a personal choice. Now, being personal, when do I decide to be more critical? When I think I can help my city, the citizens, when I think it deals with public money, when I think it's something that has to be said. Then I become more involved, and I find the energy to become more critical. This is personal, as I said. And the third point, besides having different people in the same paper writing about the same projects and buildings and so on, we have fashions. I mean, fashion governs our world. This rhythm of changing governs the media, governs every single aspect in our life, right? So we go from a fashion to another fashion, even in the very limited architectural world of the daily press, of the extinguishingly or vanishingly daily press. But I would say in the architecture press of the daily papers, I don't think fashions are, I think they have some weight, and I will try to explain this very briefly. We went from the effecto Guggenheim, the Guggenheim effect, to the kind of hangover Guggenheim effect. We have the La Resaca Guggenheim, no? That is, we went from having a building in a city that was not so well known and thinking very innocently that a building could, in a way, heal a city, which is obviously not true, but it could work in the media as a healing tool, for a city. So that's one thing. But when we started having almost every single mayor in Spain looking for their own personal Guggenheim, for example, La Ciudad de la Cultura, in Galicia, Tenerife, Ciudad Real, wherever. Museums with no collections, museums that haven't been opened yet, museums with no money to build anything really. Okay, the press started getting the point, and we were very much against this type of move. And then when every single architect thought and was taught too in the architectural schools that they could be frangeri, that is, that anyone could build an iconic building, we started also questioning this, because I think icons are exceptions, not the rule. No city can get all icons and so on and so forth. Having said that, we started also as the press concentrating in things that were not only the architectural world. So we started basically doing our homework. And that's why I think you guys at Kleiburg got this prize. Because if you think about the Mies prize, coming now to this prize, I don't think, perhaps I'm innocent as well, but I don't think only 5 years ago, or 10 years ago for sure, the jury of the prize would have paid attention to not a new building to start with, social, a building that is difficult to photograph, no image, not iconic at all. But when you guys got the prize for a wonderful job, there was so much pressure, even from the architectural press, on doing something useful, doing something social, doing something that citizens had asked for, which is exactly